a pleasure to be here sharing with so many members of country teams and regional UNDG teams this morning, especially in this panel for a subject that I consider particularly important in this agenda. The topic is something that I think we have heard many of us as part of the regional UNDGs or as part of the country teams. The SOPs, we know the commitment of our principals, we know that many of our resident coordinators have shared with you the documents. There's been a lot of work put into this. And what we want this session really is to go over and what it means. First, to have an overview of what is the elements of the SOPs, which many of you, of course, have heard, but also to discuss, and not only with the panelists, but also with all of you, why are they really important? What's in it for each one of you? What brings this to your country teams? What brings to the governments? So this is particularly important, but also I think a very important discussion that needs to happen this morning is what are the remaining bottlenecks? Why also they are difficult to implement? Why haven't we made more progress on them? And I think a lot of these ideas will come from you, and we expect participation from especially from all of you who can guide all of us on what can be done better. And also your ideas about what actions can be taken about this, and how can we move all this forward. I think we want to start with some questions to kick off the conversation. So let me turn to Karla and David. And since both of you are in official delivering as one countries, can you think of three things that have changed and that have been made possible with the delivering as one approach from your point of view?
If we look at how delivering as one has changed the way we do business, and especially gearing up for 2015, there's quite a few things that we are doing differently, at least in the Lesotho context. And I think we could see some of that from the general global circuit that was just described to us. So for example, from 2009, we have been starting to work much more closely with our NRAs. It's really important, being a small country, only having 7 resident agencies, but a lot of NRAs who are participating in our UNDP and joint programs. So we now have quarterly meetings with them on their specific issues. So it's just one example. Looking at, again, going back to understanding the importance of our normative roles and human rights, good governance, gender equality, we have created a new working group that is specific to that, but we've also included the youth, because without the youth being considered in that whole process, we aren't going to be able to move the agendas forward for human rights, good governance, and gender equality. So we're combining those things, trying to maximize our resources in the context in which we're working. I think finally we're also looking at whether or not we're fit for purpose, and understanding that it's no longer about working alone, but working together. We can see from the statistics, it's very clear that those of us who are delivering as one are having greater successes by leveraging each other's comparative advantages. And this is important, but more equally important is being transparent about how we're doing it, and talking about budgets, operational, how it supports program. So having put together the investment to put together our EMIS database, which is going to not only allow us to see what we're doing jointly on the M&E side of program, but we're also putting in operational data so that we know what the budgets are, we know what agencies are receiving, how working groups are using them. And last but not least, not only have we taken the leadership and accountability sector area, very important, the heads of agencies are leading OMT, PMT, but also the results groups. And I, as the RC, am the alternate for every single one. So that way we keep it at a very high level, because we want to maintain the commitment of the agencies to convene, and we want the participants and the members of those working groups to understand that they're being recognized. So it's also part of their performance appraisals, and it's become part of their terms of reference. not separate. We don't want it to be seen as extra work, but the core of our work. And we'll continue with this line of thinking as we roll out our new UNDAF, hoping that it will be the core, and then the country programs will be looking at some of the extra. I think that the SOPs, for us, we need to look at greater complementarity and linking that normative to the operational side. We've got to go beyond what we are used to in our UN architecture, I think, to reach out and, again, do things differently so that we can achieve the goals that we are there to do with the government. But not only that, when we're talking about partnerships, it's not just about partnerships with different groups. We need to be partners with the people that we serve. And I think we need to do more to be reaching out to the public as well and talking about what we're doing, how we're doing it. And it's not just a private sector thing or a civil society thing, but actually a different way of doing business and including the public in understanding the work. The My World Survey was a good way to start that. It has fed our UNCT in our thinking and how we're going to roll out the UNDAF, and we've shared the results of that survey with the government as well. So in their process of setting priorities, we will be able to move forward together. So this is what we're doing, at least in terms of looking at how is delivering as one, enhancing our ability to deliver, but especially as we prepare for the next round of SDGs.
How about you, David, in Albania, who was also, I think he was one of the first pilots?
So almost it's very evident to me what delivering as one has brought to the country after working in many other countries. So joint programming is assumed, it's routine. And it's been led in the past by national staff at many levels. So the fact that DAO has become the norm in planning has made a huge difference to the way we work. Obviously, there's challenge in reinforcing that with new staff, with personalities, but that's a continuous process, and it is in a normal routine of work in management. The second point I'd make is the One UN Coherence Fund is central, especially to specialized agencies, but it is fragile. And not just because we often like to keep our budgets less public sometimes, but also because some major donors will not use it, such as the EU. And in a country, a middle-income country that's aspiring to candidate status, that's a very big issue because other funding is dropping off. So we have stalwarts like Sweden, Switzerland, and others who are now considering it and haven't used it in the past, Austria. But typically, one of the challenges we really face is the DAO approach is being weakened because the Coherence Fund is being weakened. I would say that Albania has continued to simplify. The Programme of Cooperation from 2012 to 2016 had 11 outcomes and 42 outputs. But with a small country and only 20 million programme, that's a huge amount of coordination. So with the midterm review in April 2014, it reduced it to 4 outcomes, all chaired by heads of agencies, and then 17 outputs coordinated by national staff. And I think the last point, which will come out in my points later, is that the normative agenda has been placed at the heart of change, particularly in key areas like gender equality. That will come out at a later step.
Kanni, let me pass on to you to give us an overview of where we stand with the SOPs.
Let me give you some reflections. I sit in on the performance reviews of the regional UNDGs. And there is quite a difference region by region. I know yesterday the DSG said we have to be culturally sensitive. There is one thing that's changing, and in some regions it's changed much more rapidly than in others, which is a conversation on the performance of the UN country team. You see, in some regions we're very focused on the performance of the resident coordinator. Now you're hearing a conversation about the performance of the UNCT. From this year, 2015 on, formally, the 180 feedback will be formally embedded in the performance review, and every regional UNDG member will have access to how each head of agency performed on their UN responsibilities in the country. So it's a significant change. It's part of what we said was part of all principles across specialized agencies, funds and programs all signed off on the mutual accountability framework, and it's a key part of the SOP. So we are delivering on that, and that's really good to see, and it also is an incentive because it will be looked at in terms of performance and career progression. The second is we have quite some support, not from all quarters, but it's inevitable, which is that a lot of the tracking and the monitoring and the reporting will now be public record. So it is important, and it is that the formal tracking of how we are doing as a UN in a country, including on delivering results together, will be available as open domain information. So it's not just about reporting to ECOSOC, etc. And so governments have been very clear that they want this. They have a right to know what we're doing in their countries, let alone the people in that country have a right to know what we're doing in this country. So I think we're on very weak ground holding some of this close to our chest, and I think that train has left the station. So we're just playing catch up on this. The third is the issue of reinforcing ethics and values inside of UN country teams. If we are going to be delivering on the normative agenda, we've also got to act on it ourselves. If you fundamentally stand for the same things, if your principles, your core values are in the same place, it's exactly what the DSG said. The rest of it, you can work. You can work out and you kind of get into that stream where you hit a wave. And it's so important for the team to be in one place. And when we had difficulty, our regional directors stepped in. And that was also key. To know that you have as your first port of call your regional UNDG. And it was so key for us, and certainly for me, it was absolutely key to know that they had my back on core values, which were being questioned inside of a UN country team. The last point I have to make is on one funds. You're very right that there's a diminishing interest globally on one fund. So the one fund design was about internal coherence, about getting our internal act together. The reason the SOPs, which come as a second generation, is maybe not for all, but in most places we're seeing the writing on the wall, right? We've smelled the coffee that if we don't behave well together, we're really being left behind by the rest of the world. This is not an internal conversation. So the coherence funds that were very inward looking are moving to bringing us together around particular development results, which is why you're seeing the move more to kind of the swaps, the thematic funds, the issue-based, the results-based funds. We do hear in country that if we could use the one fund concept and then have the major thematic windows, then that's a win-win. So you focus now on delivering results together as the second generation of DAO. So you're putting much more the issue of results that bring us together with the idea that the SOPs is our internal good business practice, as Jessica said, to organize behind that. If we could have a win-win, it's that we would have the one funds with the thematic windows that bring us together, and some of the DAO countries are starting to go that way in their next generation.